Hello, everybody, and welcome to Catalyst of Change. I'm your host, Alexia Cito, and it is an absolute honor and pleasure that we are here with Dr. Justina Mutale. And might I say, we're in London, United Kingdom. So we're really excited to be at L&D Studio and filming this podcast and to have Dr. Justina Mutale with us, who is the founder of the Justina Mutale Foundation, who is absolutely legendary and iconic. You need to go to her website right now, read her bio, because I said already the first time I tried highlighting all the points, and by the end of it, my highlighter was done. So, and she is the author of this extraordinary book. And this book is The Art of Iconic Leadership, Power Secrets of Female World Leaders, which we are going to dive into today. And I am so excited. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much, Alexa. I'm absolutely delighted to be invited to this podcast on Catalysts of Change. We are celebrating 30 years of what is called the Beijing Platform for Action, and this is the what outlined how we can achieve gender equality and the empowerment of women. So this is very timely. And of course, the title is also very timely because we are trying to look at females that are catalysts of change and how we can achieve that gender equality.
Yes. And, this is such an important topic because I feel a lot of people feel like, well, we are at this amazing point and we have made so many strides and we have. And yet there's so far to go. So I'm curious, with your background, for example, number one, Zambian, all the work with the girl child, empowering young women, being in the United Kingdom and seeing here how equality plays out in the society. Like you have this really dynamic global worldview with all the female world leaders you're connected with from many different societies and countries. So taking all of that into account, where do you kind of see we're at right now in the world in terms of this topic?
It's still very disappointing that we've been fighting for gender equality for almost 200 years now, since the women's suffrage movement in the 19th century to where we are at now. And like I said, we are marking 30 years of what was called the Beijing Platform, the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, which outlined the 12 principles of how we can achieve gender equality. But it's been 30 years and we still have not achieved that. No country as we speak right now has achieved gender equality in the world. So we are still fighting. It's a long way to go. And I was quite heartbroken to read from the World Economic Forum that it will take another 134 years for the world to achieve gender equality. So that is very sad. And that was based on, there was a kind of calculation, and I did calculate, for example, I'm originally from Zambia, so I calculated how long it would take Zambia to achieve gender equality, and I also calculated how long it would take the United Kingdom to achieve gender equality, and it's still over 134 years from now, which is very sad.
Yeah, it is. And it's like, just for anyone listening, I think the laughs are, at least from my end, laughs of hysteria of like, is this actually the kid? Like, are you kidding me right now? So it is serious. It is not a joke. But at the same time, I'm like, how can this be? So, I mean, as much as I hear what you're saying and the World Economic Forum is saying, I also decide to choose a different narrative. And I think we have the potential to speed that up a lot. So I think you're one of the catalysts of change that's doing that with the amazing and extraordinary work that you do, all around the world. And particularly, for example, with the wisdom that you share in this book, and with the people that you connect. So what I'm wondering is when you use the word iconic, what is it to be iconic? What does iconic mean?
I think to be iconic is to kind of stand up in the world, is also to exhibit your excellence, your resilience, and your purpose. Is to bring something to the world that people will always remember you about. It's to leave a legacy that empowered the oncoming generations. To be iconic is to empower the world, leave an impact on the world, and of course touch the world. So one, they can hear and see your presence, and the world can benefit from your presence. And of course, you can inspire oncoming generations to be what you have become. For me, that is what being iconic is.
Mm. And what is it that you feel is so important about inspiring and working with the next generation?
It is very, very important to empower the next generation because, of course, as the older generations, so to speak, we have made some mistakes. And I think we have made so many mistakes since the 19th century in our fight for women, for gender equality. That is why perhaps we still have not achieved that at the moment. Why? This is why I started my foundation, the Justina Mutale Foundation, because in 2015, at the conclusion of the Millennium Development Goals, I was in New York at the or United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, and we were reviewing then, that's 10 years ago, the 20 years of the Beijing Platform for Action.
Wow.
What really broke my heart was that I found myself marching in what was yet again called Historic March for Gender Equality. And I thought, but we have been marching for over 200 years now. Why has this gender equality been so elusive? And I am a parent to what you would call a millennium baby. My baby was born in the year 2000 at the inception of the Millennium Development Goals. And at the center of those Millennium Development Goals was the achievement of gender equality and the empowerment of women by the year 2015. So I'm marching, and my millennium baby has turned 15 years old. She's a teenager. And we are also going into what is called now the Sustainable Development Goals. And of course, again, gender equality has been placed at the core of the Sustainable Development Goals. And I am thinking, I do not want my millennium baby by the year 2030, at the conclusion of the Sustainable Development Goals in 2030, when she will be 30, and my millennium baby and her peers will be the decision makers, they'll be the leaders, they'll be the the policy makers. And I thought, I do not want those girls born at the beginning of the millennium to still be marching by 2030. But then I thought, well, should it be necessary for them to march? I'd want them to march not with their feet, not on their feet, but I wanted them to march with a mind, with their mind, a mind fully equipped with the right education, the right information, the right knowledge, the right tools, the right skills, and of course, the right networks and the right power networks that can make them move at equal footing with their male counterparts. So I started the foundation, and of course, one of the flagships of our foundation is education. We have the emphasis on education, providing quality education to the girl child, because I believe only until the girl child is educated enough to take those leadership positions, all the other issues that negatively affect the female child or women would fall in place.
Mm-hmm. And this might sound like such a silly question, but a lot of us and people are very unaware. And even when you say the issues that are facing the women, like what does that even mean? Like, what are those issues? People may not even understand, what is happening.
People have never understood, unless you are in this movement that we are in. I'm a gender advocate. Unless you are in the movement, then you will understand. But for example, I talked about leadership. Up to today, we've only got about 7% women women heads of government or heads of state of their countries. And you find when you look at the G20, there's only one or two women there. Sometimes there's no women. It depends on what period it is. Like I remember the last time Angela Merkel, as Chancellor of Germany, used to be the only female on that G20, or was it G7 or G8? But these are the tables at which decisions are made. And if women are not sitting at those tables where decisions are made that affect affect the girl child and the women in the lives of women and the girl child, the ideas of women are missing at that table. The inspirations of women are missing at that table. The aspirations of women are missing at that table. The way the emerging issues that are happening to women are missing at that table. So for me, our idea is to have what is called a 50-50 planet, where at every high level decision making table, we can have 50% male perspective and, of course, 50% female perspective, where you bring the yin and yang together. Only until we achieve that, then we'll know that we can inspire and aspire humanity for human progress and, of course, prosperity for all.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is like sounds simple, but it's so, so deep. And it's truly something that when you say it, it sounds revolutionary. And yet it's really not. It's like very simple. It's like this should not feel like a revolution. This is so simple. It's like, this is a microphone. It's like that. So, but for some people, this is like, wow, like women at the table is crazy. So, you are courageous and you are standing on those front lines. And many of these women that you will be interviewing this year in your podcast, Becoming Iconic, and in, the amazing World Summit. I was able to attend the World Summit on Women and Girls, and it was so, so amazing to see people from all over the world speaking and sharing together. So what do you see when you mention, education and having the right knowledge and having the right tools and, the right contacts and network? How do you actually imagine that we can carry that out for the young women in the world, especially those that may not have that yet?
Yeah, you see, if we can equip young women and girls with, like I said, with the right knowledge, the right skills, the right tools, the right resources, the right networks that can spring them into action. And of course, a lot of our young women have got that talent in them. All we need is to stimulate it, because I believe that every girl has potential. And what we need is to provide every girl with the opportunity to excel at the highest potential that she can.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can do that, then we can help every girl in the world contribute, in fact, positively to the development of the world. They can contribute their aspiration, their desires, their dreams, their perspective of the world and the world that they want. And once we can do that, we can easily achieve gender equality.
Yes. And one thing I want to highlight that's really coming through for me and hearing you share is that this movement, for the girl child, this movement for gender equality, in a way, it's a foundation for so much more.
It
Like,
is.
we are talking about world peace.
Yes.
We are talking about climate change. We are talking about violence and war. Like, we are talking about genocide. Because when we talk about bringing this balance is like the foundation for transformation for so much that's happening on the world right now because of that lack of balance.
Of course, recently there's been an emphasis on leaders having emotional intelligence. And with the girl child or women, emotional intelligence almost comes naturally, because most women are mothers. The majority of women are mothers. And also, if you have noticed, even in places of conflict and war, you will see that a girl child, for example, even during the at the height of the HIV/AIDS pandemic, where both parents would die, if you would have a 5-year-old child, boy child, and a 3-year-old girl child, but the girl child would take care of the 5-year-old brother who's much older than they are. And this happens in the most of the time. If you look at some of the adverts or the information that is seen on television, most of the time it will be a girl child talking about their brother and how they are suffering, or carrying the brother on the back, or trying to look after the brother, even though the brother is much older than they are. So women bring that emotional intelligence to the fore, and it talks about taking care of the community, taking care of the people that are around you. And when we bring this to the fore into leadership, then we know that humanity has got a chance, because empowering the girl child is empowering humanity.
Mm-hmm.
When we empower the girl child, we know that we can empower humanity and we can achieve the progress for all, and of course, human prosperity that we've always been yearning for. It has been said that if you are a child born of an educated mother, will go as far in education as that child wants to be. And a child, of course, born of an affluent mother automatically will lead an affluent life. And you can't say that about children born of an educated father or uneducated father or an affluent father, because that depends on who the mother is. Sometimes some men don't want to recognize the children they have brought into the world.
Mm-hmm.
So the child, in most cases, would be left with the mother and will live the kind of life that the mother has. So empowering women, empowering the girl child automatically will carry with us humanity into prosperity.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And, this I feel is something that needs to happen all over the world. A lot of people feel like, oh, it's just like this area, or it's like we can see it right here at home, wherever home is, like you had shared in the beginning. And just thinking about that 7% is just mind-boggling. And even though it's right in plain sight, for many people, it may not even be in their awareness because it's not always talked about as much. Of course, in these gender equality conversations and the movements, it is. But in the mass consciousness of humanity, people may not even be aware of a number like that.
In fact, last week we had in fact 2 meetings with some of the parliamentarians in the UK, and also from the Office of Equalities and Opportunities office at the government offices of the UK, and that was highlighted because, for example, most of these international or global conferences, for example, the World Economic Forum, COP, whether it's COP 26 or 56 or whatever number it is, talking about climate change. And of course, some of these platforms to talk about LGBTQ communities, they are always highlighted in the media. But what we have found, like I said, we are now on Thursday, day after tomorrow. I'm heading to New York for what is called the 60. In fact, it's the 69th year of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. But this is a conference that you never hear about in the media.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been wondering, what is it? Where do we place the achievement of gender equality? Because the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women has been taking place for the past 78 years. This will be the 79th year. And we keep talking about the same things. And like I said, we started fighting for gender equality since 200 years ago. But why isn't the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women highlighted in the mainstream media as much as the World Economic Forum, the G20, the G7 summit, and all these other summits that happen in the world?
Absolutely. I mean, I have to say, I'm so sorry, but I heard about it through you.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Like, even, like I was like, oh, what? Like, this sounds amazing. It's like, of how old? Like, dude, like, it's wild. So,
I think it's been taking place for 69 years. And the community do not know about it because the mainstream media or the media do not cover it.
Yes. So, I mean, we are really working to change that. And I have to say, being in the rooms and the events like these conferences, your amazing World Summit on Women, and using platforms like the podcast, like the books, like it is growing this message across the world, and we can really do it together. And I think that's one of the things that's so inspiring is, when women come together, and I spoke very briefly, I think it was like just 2 minutes about this at the World Summit at the House of Lords, but it was, this conditioning that women are meant to be in competition of each other, or women are meant, da 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 da. There's all of this conditioning from a very young age in many ways, especially in the modern media and television and movies and whatever. And so when we get in these rooms and we see all these powerful, amazing, iconic women, we realize, oh my gosh, we are one team. There's like a sisterhood. And what I feel is that for, these hundreds of years, there's so many like brotherhoods, and even growing up, something called bro code. It's like very like ingrained in the society, like bro this, bro that. There's also this like sister code that I feel like that's emerging. This like sisterhood where we're remembering that ancient wisdom that we are actually all connected, and we're really meant to like support and empower each other, and like that's where so much of our strength lies. And in fact, that's in our DNA. That's in our blood. Like our ancestors, if you go before the 200 in the ancient times, we had a lot of that. So I just kind of wanted to bring that forward and see like your insights around that as well.
Yes, in fact, when you talk about ancestors and before those 200 years, for example, I am from Zambia, which is in Africa. And in Africa, for thousands and thousands of years, women used to be in leadership position. In my country, Zambia, up to today, we do have a lot of women in leadership positions. Like I could go back in my own family, my mother's part of the family, a woman still rules the kingdom. And from my father's part of the family, even though a woman is, or even though it is very patriarchal, that did not stop one very brave and assertive woman to rise up and start a movement that actually shook the political foundation of my country. So you can see, and also when you look at, for example, countries like Rwanda that went through the genocide, what happened with the genocide in Rwanda is that it tilted the population ratio. So then you had 40 to 60, 40 men and 60 women. And what we have seen is that Rwanda now leads in the number of female representation in parliament.
Wow.
With the last time that I did my research was 64% women in parliament in Rwanda. But because Rwanda has been leading in the number of women in parliament and political decision making, we find that Rwanda is one of Africa's centerpiece, and of course, it's also one of the world's fastest rising economies. But this only happened because the men had died off. Well, God bless their souls. But so you can see that
Yes.
when women are given the opportunity to lead, they are left with a playground to express their talents. They can rise to the occasion, as happened in Rwanda. Yeah, so it's just due to what you call institutional discrimination that in most parts of the world, the women cannot come and express. Women's talents have always been kind of stepped upon, and women have not been allowed to express their full potential. But given the opportunity, women would rise to the occasion, just as we have seen in Rwanda.
Absolutely. And, it also, hearing you share about this and women's qualities,
Yeah.
kind of reminds me of this overarching theme where a lot of the societies, they value this like go-getter attitude and this hardness and like the taking action, doing this, and it's like, the one who speaks the loudest and the heart. And then there's this whole other dimension of life where it's like that softness or the receptivity or the compassion and the love, and maybe thinking not so linear or more circular. Like there's all of these dimensions of living, and each one has a purpose. The strong has a purpose, the force has a purpose, but it's equal with all the others. And so in what you're sharing, I feel that also because there's even this other dimension to even the gender, where there's this like, what do we value as people, and what does it mean to like be iconic or be successful? Like, what does that even look like? Right? For some people, being iconic might be like, having billions of dollars and flying on their private jets and whatever, which is wonderful. Like, we love, that's great. And yet there's also like, well, maybe it's also iconic to like, make a really big difference in the world and be someone that's full of love and compassion. And, maybe they make choices that are going to positively impact the world. And I feel like there's so many ways that we can look at what even means to be iconic. And when you speak in this book, and I'm curious what inspired you to combine iconic with leadership.
Okay, so I'll just go back to Rwanda. So when that happened in Rwanda, when the women woke up and suddenly found they had, before the genocide, women in Rwanda needed to get permission from a male relative. It could be your husband, your father, your grandfather, your uncle, even your brother, even though they might be younger than you. Yeah. So after the genocide, they woke up and find they had no brothers or no male relatives from whom to take the permission.
What was the permission for?
The permission to participate in community activities, in business, in politics, and all other spheres of life. So they didn't have those. So the women rose to the occasion. They suddenly overnight become the leaders, the running their uncle's farm, running their brother's business, running their family's conglomerates, or what their husband used to do. So you see that women can do it when they are pushed to that way. And so what that did was that young boys then had a different outlook and a different perspective of looking at their male or female relatives, because now they can see a whole change of things, and then they can see that actually female relatives can run things without having to seek permission from their male relatives. So that's what it did. So in writing my book on the art of iconic leadership, is what you talked about, some of those soft skills that, we now in the 21st century, you don't have to flex your muscles in order to be a leader. Leadership now is about collaboration. It's about understanding other people. It's about being empathetic and being sympathetic and paying attention to what the people around you, the people that you are leading to. I highlight some of those powers, the powers which are, of course, traits, female traits. Women bring their natural wisdom to leadership, and they bring those natural traits to leadership. Natural traits, for example, of a mother. I'll give an example in all of these issues to do with peace. You did mention about peace and security in the world. When a mother who's got more than one child in the family, and if the children are their sibling rivalries, the mother always wants a win-win situation. They are not going to force one child to go and diminish the other child. They bring them together and remind them, this is your brother, and they remind the other one what wrong they are doing, and the other one the wrong that they are doing, and so they can live together, still live together as brother and sister, or as brothers. And that is a talent that we need in global politics. It's a talent that we need our world leaders to have. If we had that, we wouldn't be having as many wars as we have in the world currently. So that is what iconic leadership is about, bringing that excellence. It's about bringing that resilience. It's also about bringing that purpose, and of course, bringing that emotional intelligence to the table, to understand other people, to listen to carefully to what they are talking about, to what it is that is irking them, and how can you help them so that you have a win-win situation, rather than siding with one, or rather than flexing muscles to say that I am the most powerful and this is what I've decided and this is how the world should go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so being iconic is about inspiring other people, is about leaving a mark in the world. It's about leaving a legacy that can enhance other people's lives, that can give people a positive quality to the kind of life that they live. So that is what being iconic for me is all about, is to be able to inspire and, of course, inspire other people and help other people and leave a legacy that enhances other people's lives.
Oh my goodness. Dr. Justina, this is so powerful. It's so simple, but it's so profound because, just think about, just imagine if everyone, or at least the majority, 60, 70% of humanity live like this. And not just humanity, but we're talking about the people in power, the countries, the leaders, the decision makers that impact most of humanity, really lived for putting others first, listening to their needs, having that empathy, that emotional intelligence, that compassion, just even reflecting on what the impact of that would be in this world is so profound. And, you're playing such a huge part in bringing that forward and connecting iconic women all around the world. And my question is, if you had a message for any women listening or anyone, especially someone who might feel, maybe they hear all this and maybe they feel hopeless, or maybe they feel like, I want to make a change, I want to do something, but what can I do? I'm just sitting at home listening to this podcast. What do I do? What Justina, what's your message for me?
Okay, to start with, I'd like to say that you're a woman. Remember, you are the guardian of humanity. You bring life into this world. We nurture and nurture humanity, and to make them become. We can change the course of humanity if women can only stand up, and also if you can have that unshakable self belief within yourself and banish all the limiting beliefs that you might have and have that unshakable self belief in your potential, in your talents, in your abilities, and your capabilities. Look at something that you have a passion for and bring that forth into the world. Then you will be able to contribute positively to the world, and you will see the magic that female leadership, the magic that the girl child, the magic that women can bring into this world. And only then, it was said by I can't remember who it is that said that if Eve, as one woman, could turn the world upside down, imagine if all the women coming together and turning the world right side up.
I think now is the time.
Now is the time that we can do that.
Yes.
If one woman did that, a lot of women can just change the whole thing right around.
Yes. And in much faster than 140
In much faster than 135 years.
I add.
Yeah, that is why I started the foundation. I thought, okay, let me try and do the little that I can to help accelerate the achievement of gender equality. We now have 5 years to go to the conclusion of what is called the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And like I said, the achievement of gender equality and empowerment within women was at the core. But even with that, we still can see, even with the 30 years of the Beijing Platform for Action and the Beijing Declaration, with 5 years to go, we are still nowhere near achieving gender equality. The other thing is for us women to think, who is setting the pace for this? When the World Economic Forum set that calculator, that made me find that I needed to live for another 134 years to achieve gender equality. Who was setting that calculator? Was it the women or was it the men? Can we take this movement into our own hands, that perhaps maybe we can get there quicker than if we leave it to other people, to the male gender to do that for us?
Yes, absolutely. And it it reminds me of the Einstein quote.
Yes.
Like you cannot solve cannot solve the issue at the same level that what created it.
Exactly.
So we are going beyond and we are innovating,
Yeah, because in
creating.
whose interest is it that women should always be lagging behind when you think about it? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's why I love that you brought forward the 50-50.
Yeah.
Because this is also key because there's a lot of men that I think they get scared. They don't want to maybe say it, but there's that ego. "Oh, what's going to happen when the women get him? What am I going to do with my life? Well, I won't have the power anymore, whatever." But the point is what you're saying. It's 50-50.
It's
It's a
50-50. It's a balance. It's to bring the yin and yang together. Because as it is, the statistics show that women comprise 51% of the world population. So men are only 49%. So why shouldn't we bring that to the decision-making table? And in fact, we are even being a bit generous. We just want 50-50. We could demand for 51% of women on those tables. But all we are asking for is 50-50. So we bring the yin and yang together, bring that balance. I think if we bring that balance, then we can bring the pizza tower to stand straight rather than leaning.
Absolutely. Oh, yes, we can.
Yeah.
And, I think there's a few, so there's one other thing that we had touched on that I was curious to also hear a little bit about, which is, or maybe it's just something that was coming through for me when we were talking about the ancestors. And also, when we think about a lot of what you're sharing about the nurturing and caring for humanity, and a lot of this to me, it resonates with a lot of different indigenous teachings that I've known or been introduced to throughout my life, whether it's like from North America, South America, Africa, like all these different regions where they speak about these traditional teachings that humanity is known for, like the dawn of time, whenever, so my curiosity is like, in your heritage, or I don't know if there's any special wisdom from Zambia or any of your ancestors that connects to this theme and this history of like the roles of the masculine and feminine and like how that impacts humanity and the collective.
Uh, to start with, from what I have learned, from what I have observed, I am a student of international relations and politics and philosophy and diplomacy and all of that. What I have seen is that the unconsciousness, of course, consciousness, of course. So it's been said that the in all of us, we have both the male and we have both the masculine and feminine spirit within each person. But the male spirit is about me. It's a very selfish spirit. It's just about themselves. And like I said, if a child, for example, you can't say that a child born of an affluent man will lead an affluent life. That would depend on the mother that they are, because sometimes men stray and they go and have a child. For example, a billionaire could have a child with a waitress. And in the end, the waitress is left to hold that child, and that child will lead the life of the waitress rather than the billionaire father. That is because the masculine spirit is about me. And then the feminine spirit, from what I understand, is about building. It's about building the community, building the nation, building the world, building humanity. That is why it is important that we bring women to the table. Although I know that because we have both feminine and masculine spirits in each of us, the feminine spirit is more dominant in a lot of women, in the majority of women, while the masculine spirit is dominant in the majority of men. But here and there, you can find that some women have that masculine spirit, and they'll bring that masculine characters and way of flexing muscles to the table. And this is where sometimes you find that you have a female leader, but in the way that they behave and the things they do, it just shows as if they are male. But this is because in that person, the masculine spirit overrides the feminine spirit. that is some of the things that I. But then I'd like to go back to, for example, in Africa, we have a philosophy called the philosophy of Ubuntu. And this applied to both the male and female, of where we say that I am because you are, and that the suffering of others is, of course, the suffering of is our own suffering, and where we recognize that we need to move together as humans. For example, I have an example where a Western, I can't remember what to call him. But anyway, this guy went to Africa and found these, said to the children, very young children, up to about 7 years old, come here, let's do this. And the winner will get this prize. And if you run the fastest, you get this prize. And when he said, go, the children held each other's hands and they ran together. So then anthropologists, they call them. So then he was surprised and said, but why did you hold each other's hands? Don't you want the prize? And the children said, no, if one of us is unhappy, then we cannot be happy. You see, so that is the philosophy of. But then you also see this in global politics or globalization, for example. The fluttering of a butterfly in the Amazon will spread all over the world. And this happens, for example, in the year 2008, when we had the economic crash. It started in the US and just went all over the world. And also, whenever there is a war in any part of the world, the reverberations, the percussions go out into the rest of the world. Even in those countries that believe that they have won the war, they have this exodus of refugees and influx of refugees coming into their countries. So then they need to find more money to look after those people. So this rings true in bringing back the philosophy of Ubuntu. If one part of the world is not happy, no other parts of the world will be happy. We all have to look after one another, because we can only be human through other humans. When you start to consider other humans as non-human, then you cannot be human. We are all interdependent. We are all interdependent in so many different ways. And that is the thing that, for example, the emotional intelligence borrows a lot of its principles from the philosophy of Ubuntu.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's like a golden truth.
Yeah.
It's really a beautiful message. And oh my goodness, the vision of the children running with, it's just like that is, to me, such a representation of imagine as a humanity.
Yeah.
If all the children of the world could have that response.
Yeah. And now, so we hear, for example, the United Nations saying no one left behind. So it comes from that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then, how is this really put into praxis?
Right.
Yes, because there are all these proclamations of no one left behind, and yet a lot of people are being left behind. But it stems from that, what I've just explained to you.
Yes. And, that I feel also speaks to performative versus actually being in action and in practice, of whatever we're sharing about, and really caring about those. And that's what I feel that's really empowering is that we can do that right now. We can start wherever we are, whoever we are, even if it's just our family members or our friends or our colleagues, the people beside us. We can just start by being that person in the best way that we know how, and just put in a little bit of effort. Maybe at first it doesn't feel supernatural, but try to think about what the other person may be thinking or going through, what they need, or ask them and do our best to support them in some way. And I feel like the more of us that continue to act in that way in our daily life, that ripple effect can go far.
Yes, in fact, that's what makes iconic leaders, because iconic leaders present opportunity to other people coming behind them. They give them opportunities and give them a chance at a good life, and also they show them and give them the example that this is possible. They are iconic leaders are role models who show that this can be done. If I can do it, then you too can do it. And they give you that opportunity to do so.
Yes, it's so, so important. So we want to thank you, Dr. Justina Mutale, for being with us and being the iconic leader that you are. And I want to welcome everyone and thank you for being with us on Catalyst of Change. We have one final question. So our last question, and this is a question that we ask all the guests on Catalyst of Change. So if you could be a catalyst of change for one thing in the world right now, what would that be?
For me, that would be to provide quality education to the girl child. And like I said, once we empower the female child or we empower women, then we empower humanity. If the girl child can be educated to the highest level that they can, all the issues that impact negatively on women would naturally fall in place because then they would have the ability, the capability, they would have the mindset and the knowledge and the tools to sit at those high level decision making tables and bringing their dreams, their aspirations, their ideas, their perspective on life. And then that would naturally spring into everything, into every sphere of humanity, into every sphere of work, and that would change what we are talking about now. In fact, that would accelerate the achievement of gender equality and the empowerment of women if we provided quality education to the girl child.
Well, I think we just found an answer. So let's get cracking. Thank you, Dr. Justina. This has been such a powerful session. And we want to thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alexia. And thank you for inviting me to come to air my views, my experiences, share some of my work, and of course, on my outlook on life and my ideas, and of course, aspirations and dreams for humanity, for the girl child, and of course, for humanity.
Yes. And I want to welcome everyone. All our catalysts of change get the art of iconic leadership today with Dr. Justina Mutale. And please share, like, and comment, especially if this resonated with you, your thoughts, your ideas, what you felt about any topics in the conversation. There is a lot here for you. I'm excited myself to listen back. And we want to encourage you to continue being catalysts of change for positive transformation in your lives and community. And we will see you again in the next episode.